Good morning, everybody, and welcome to a show I've been looking forward to doing for months because it took me months to schedule this one with between my schedule and Hakeem's schedule. But this is something we've started talking about on the podcast, and it's the beginning of a series of discussions about putting our money where our mouth is and taking control of our digital hygiene, basically, because over the years, as technology has developed, I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't even have computers yet, right? So we watched all of that happen, the advent of the internet going from a phone attached to the wall to a really clunky pager where you had to find a phone to this other like giant mobile phone. My first mobile phone I ever saw, guys, was in a car with a cable that was like holding this book up to your head, to where we are now with smartphones where we literally have a computer in our pocket all the time. We've been trained by technology providers to trade our privacy and our data for free access to their services. And then we talk about wanting freedom and being agorists and, decentralizing our lives, and we're forming communities, and we're still using these pieces of technology. I literally used Google Docs this morning. So I'm as guilty of it as anybody else. But Hakeem has made it his mission to help make this easier for people to transition away from some of these things, to understand how it works. He's from Above Phone. And Hakeem, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Nicole. Thank you for having me.
Tell everybody a little bit about your background, and then we're going to jump into talking about these things.
Sure. So, yes, I was born in the 90s. So, in the era of computers, I think I had a computer like by the age of 11, for better and for worse. And so I've always had a love of just creating with technology, whether it's animation or music or anything like that. And that graduated obviously into my career. I was a software engineer after college. And I worked my way up the ladder and was working in New York City, doing software engineering, cloud computing, robotic process automation all along the way for really big companies, billion-dollar companies. And still something was missing, right? It wasn't very fulfilling with all this money and this tech and the smart people from Ivy League schools that I was working with. I was like, why are we actually doing this? Is this actually helping people? And I also got to see behind the scenes how they were treating people's data, even protected health information. And it wasn't good. And so there was that missing piece. And luckily, I've had mentors who had helped me see how the world actually works. And so I was always kind of a black sheep in my career. And I knew I wanted to work on something more meaningful. So I was living in New York City during the pandemic. And I got to see how brittle today's infrastructure really is, the food infrastructure. And I remember going to the grocery store and there was nothing but beans. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to stay in the city and help contribute to building this digital prison around us. I'm going to choose to do something else. I was already working with Derek Bros of the Freedom Cell Network and John Bush at the time. And so I decided to put all my eggs into one basket and make the leap and quit my job and move back home to help out with the Freedom Cell Network. And luckily, it turned out, hey, there's a lot of other sane and passionate people out there who are looking for answers. And during the time everyone was locked down, I think we had to turn to the internet to find the sane people because everyone was really scared when it came to cities locally. And so we found each other, right? And that's the power of the internet through helping with that, through helping with the Greater Reset, the People's Reset, the conference, doing all the tech infrastructure for that. I got to see the true power of the internet, which was bringing people together. And along the way, I realized, oh man, if anyone needs protection, digital protection, it's us. It's the people who are questioning the narrative. And so through my own paranoia as well, I was like, I want a solution that I can feel good about, working with volunteers and team members and keeping our work safe. And so we spent about 4 to 6 months researching what we could use internally. And it ended up being so good. It ended up taking so much of the weight of the psychological weight of having your privacy invaded, having your conversations listened to, that we were like, okay, this is so good that maybe we should share it with others. And so we did. And that's what Above Phone turned into.
That's really cool. as you dove into sort of like that technology side of getting away from dependence on these things that we're all dependent on, what parts were the hardest to think about, like letting go to protect your privacy?
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing that most people struggle with, including myself, is the social media aspect. We were chatting before this interview how hard it is, right? Where do people congregate now? Where do people get information in their local neighborhood? You've got things like Facebook Marketplace and like WhatsApp groups and GroupMe's and Nextdoor. And all of these things are absolutely surveilling the surveilling what is going on in the neighborhood, and they're also controlling what can be said there. And this is something we've seen, and so it's really hard to let go of that. And the unfortunate part is, it's, well, not unfortunate, it's kind of empowering, is that it's going to take all of us moving off of those platforms and onto things that respect our freedom and our privacy. And it's pretty simple to understand a software that would do that, which would be software that you could run yourself at home, and software that is completely transparent for you to see. So, you can use it yourself without the help of any third parties. I mean, we all have computers at home. The computers in the cloud and the computers at home, there's not any major differences between the two, besides that the computers, the servers in the clouds are set up with really fast internet 24/7, right? So in the future, I think we could see communities shifting towards local services and providing their own internet utilities. So social media has been a big part of that, but that is, I would say, the one box that we haven't fully ticked off yet. Everything else we have pretty much figured out, like the navigation, the calling, the one-to-one communication, even the video conferencing. And so I'm happy to share how that actually looks on the above phone.
Yeah, that's really fun. It's interesting how a tool that brings us together, the internet, is also what is dividing us so starkly right now. It's being used, against us from a propaganda standpoint to elicit an emotional response that makes us hate people we shouldn't hate.
100%, right? It's the algorithms that are very, very carefully tuned. And you have to be careful. You have to really protect yourself, right? When you see content, even on freedom platforms, because let's be honest, like they're the the people who want to put forth these agendas have no problem going onto freedom platforms and creating fake news and fake content. And a lot of it is charged now, and it's charged to make you feel a certain way. It's charged to pit you up against each other and make your focus on being conflict instead of creating. Not to say that there aren't issues, but we should try and discuss them like realistically. So, I mean, one thing I really appreciate about above phone, if you decide to take this jump, is that there are less of these abusive software services. I mean, there's no Google and Apple services on it at all, but it's all based on your consent. If you want to go into that world of social media, you can use Facebook on this phone, but it's not embedded into the phone by default like it is on Samsung phones or different kinds of phones that have contracts with Facebook to give their apps special permissions like microphone permissions and to prevent you from uninstalling it. So with this new form of technology, you are going to have the freedom to choose what you want on it.
So let's get into the above phone. Why did you start with phones, and why is it so important to protect your privacy?
Totally. I think the first thing was because of how pervasive phones were, and also because we're just on the go. The team at that time, we were spread across several different countries, so communicating between time zones, not all of us were at home at the same time, so we needed something to communicate on the go. We also wanted something universal. So the solutions I'm going to talk about today, they work on the phone, they work on the above phone, but it's not just limited to that. They also work on other devices, including your laptop and even different phones like iPhones or normal Android. So they're universal. But we focused on the phones because there is a phone in everyone's pocket. And one of the trends I'm looking at is all the countries in the world right now, we're having a sharp increase in the adoption of Android phones. And compared to like what devices people are using, those phones are overtaking the market, especially in developing countries. So 7 billion phones, one in every person's pocket. And then there are two companies, Google and Apple, that run 99% of these phones. And so when you look at studies that look at how these phones are communicating back to Google and Apple, you see a lot of really worrisome things. There's a study out of Trinity College in Ireland that showed that phones were connecting back every 5 minutes, and they were sending these unique identifiers. So these unique identifiers would be the way that they associate you across all of your data that you might be sending out in the world. So there's things like your phone number itself. There's things like your IMEI, which is your a unique identity on the mobile network. So that was being sent to Google and Apple. They didn't necessarily need this data, but they were happy to collect it. And then there was more like more of the ones you would expect, like your Android advertising ID, your Apple advertising ID, right? Which is how they have such cohesive advertising. If you're signed into your Google account, for example, on your computer and also your phone, when you type something on your computer, you get ads for it on your phone, right? So that's how that works. It's not black magic. They may be listening to your conversations, but most of the time it's through these advertising IDs that they collect all of your info. So the other thing that was that we saw was that these centralized software services. So in Android phone, there's Google services. On an Apple phone, there's these Apple services. They're rolling out updates that change literally how humanity relates with each other. In just one update. For a really good example is the contact tracing update, which Google and Apple worked on that together. So there's these two rival companies, that are just going toe to toe, but they decide to work on this system together that was meant to detect how far you are away from other people using Bluetooth signals, which, by the way, is completely inaccurate. It doesn't work in practice. Bluetooth signals bounce around everywhere and trying to measure the power. It just doesn't make sense. And other scientists weren't able to reproduce the efforts yet. Google and Apple spent millions of dollars in R&Ding this, and governments around the world, state governments around the world, spent millions of dollars of our tax money developing apps for this. And also, the system itself, the contact tracing system, was deployed onto everyone's phones at once, except if you were using a de-Googled phone, because you don't actually need to have Google services on it. So that's just one example of how they can completely shift how you interact with people. Like digital payments is one thing too, like Google Pay and Apple Pay. They launched that, I believe, in I want to say like 2016. And in a few years, it became half of the way people were using to pay digital payments. So, there are massive changes happening just from the updates that they put out.
Sorry for the awkward pause. I had to mute myself because one of my pets is apparently in my office. So he's
Hey.
cat, and he's decided that it's a great time to play. I was like, I think
Bring him on screen.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, I could. He's found a hair tie from my desk, and he's having fun with that.
He's satisfied.
So yeah, to me, it makes sense with phones. I look at data just from the web developer standpoint. And I see what people like. We can see if you access the website with a phone versus a computer. And we're at about 70% phones now. So that little device is, I think, where you give up most of your privacy, because that's where you are most of the time. And it's always fun to play with that and do something completely unusual and talk about, like swing sets if you don't have kids, and then see if you get advertising from swing sets. So it's, we talk about that a lot, and they say, ooh, they're listening. And I wonder if when you program your brain to think about swing sets, if you start looking for things online versus if they're hearing you. I've never really unraveled that. So, so let's talk about the Telegram arrest, because that's been as bad as some other arrests I can think of in the past. It seems to me like it's a control move or a fear tactic. What are you seeing from that standpoint?
So I've been on Telegram for ever since I started this as well. It was my first platform, a social media platform. And I remember just really appreciating, like, at a time where, we just had the purge in 2015, 2016, where they had taken down like many alternative thinking groups. And then here's Telegram. And all these communities just started flourishing, like the health freedom community, permaculture communities, just freedom communities in general. And I think we were given a voice there, so that has given Telegram a lot of credit. And at the same time, there's a now everyone is talking about Telegram, and we know that to a degree, Telegram is not private. You have to trust that Telegram is going to keep those encryption keys that protect everyone's messages safe. But if you look at Pavel Durov, the CEO of Telegram's history, you could see he has a pretty good track record of being resistant to authoritarianism. When he was based in Russia with his first social media company, he literally would send picture. They would ask him for the encryption keys for the social network. Putin's administration did, and he would send them a pair of rusty keys, saying, "Here's the encryption keys." So it's like, he's a cheeky guy and he's a smart one, and he was outsmarting intelligence agencies, and he's gone now on multiple different outlets. That Carlson interview that he talked about the FBI and talking to him and trying to get access to Telegram when he was here in the States. So he's a smart guy, and countries have had to threaten to force him out of the country. Like Germany threatened to block Telegram out of the country. And I think this move just shows, like, this is someone who is running a messaging service that serves probably over 1 billion people now. And this is what happens when you get to that level and you don't play ball. So it's totally a power move. They're just showing him that, hey, you can't just go on like that and not play ball. It's not allowed. So in a way, he's a martyr, and I'm really interested to see what happens next.
Do you think there's something that a groundswell of people like us could do to make France so embarrassed they stop pursuing this, or is this just going to happen the way it happens, in your opinion? And I think about this. I'll give a story. A friend of mine runs a private membership association in Kentucky, and they connect their members with raw milk. And because they're not actually paying the association for the milk, they're paying the farmer directly. That's fine. Except that the health department in Kentucky decided it was not fine and they were going to make an example of him. The problem was the members of that association were senators, doctors, lawyers, and they had so many that when they got shut down on Independence Day, which was the perfect message, like the guy who founded it sent out an email to everybody and said, here's the phone number of your specific representative in the state by address. This is who they are. Call them on Independence Day and leave the following message. Sorry to disturb you on Independence Day, but we wanted you to be aware of a gross misuse of power. So needless to say, his name is poisoned at the Department of Health in the state of Kentucky now, and they backed off. On an international scale, that's much harder to manufacture, but do you think there's an opening for that we could do?
Totally. I mean, I love that story you just described, right? That's the human, the community value of having friends and having people at your back. Because and I think that Pavel has done that too. We just had the UAE pull out of a deal of, I think it was like $60 billion in fighter jets. It was some huge number that they were going to buy fighter jets from France, and they're saying, all right, we're not going to do that anymore. Partially in response to Pavel being arrested, and then there's other geopolitical things happening with trade to France. France has just made themselves look really bad there. But these are all political moves. I'm not sure at this point in time if there's anything an average person can do. besides make themselves not reliant on a large third party, even like Telegram, right? I think we've got to get to the point where we are all using our own independent communication infrastructure and voluntarily choosing to communicate with each other. Because if you do get too big, there are ways to track you down. On the bright side, it does seem like from everything the Telegram team has said, that they're going to continue operating, that they're not worried about handing over data. And even other countries that use Telegram and officials that use Telegram don't seem to be worried about it. So I just think that's interesting.
Cool. Well, on that note, do you want to show us what the above phone looks like? Because I think this is a good segue. I've got some questions starting to come in about for you, but I think it'd be fun to see it before we do that. Oh, and it just so happens you're a tech person who can do tech stuff.
Boom, it's on screen. Magic. So this is the above phone. Yeah, it looks like just looks like your normal everyday phone. It's not so hard to use. I'm swiping left and right to go to and from the home screen. Swiping up to see all my apps here, which I know you don't know what all these are. I'll explain them in a second. Swipe down to see your notifications, right? Pretty normal. Swipe down again, you can see your toggles, and you'll begin to see some things here that you wouldn't see on a normal phone. You'll see that I can turn off the microphone access, I can turn off the camera access from the entire phone itself. So even if you install big tech apps, you always have plenty of control over what they're doing. And before I go further into this, I'll just say the above phone will work with any cellular service, no matter where you're at. Works with any GSM compatible cellular service, which should be all cellular service today. So you simply just would take your SIM card, you can plug it in the above phone, and then you'll start to have service. Some people want to be extra private and keep their previous cellular identity separate, and so they buy a special cell service for the above phone. We're also going to have our own cell service, which is coming out soon in the next month or two, which is going to be based on eSIMs. So it'll work with any cell service. And then the other part is it works with pretty much all the apps you need too. So you might have that question, where do I get my apps? I need this for work, or I need big tech apps just because they're part of what I do. And so for that, you can use this app called Aurora Store. Now, Aurora Store will connect to the official Google Play Store. So it is connecting to Google, but it's still far more private because you're using an anonymous Google account. You're sharing it with hundreds, if not thousands of people. And so Google doesn't have a way to pin down your identity. And additionally, with the above phone, we sell a suite of software services, which is called Above Suite. And one of those things is a VPN, which some of you might be familiar with. So that also helps protect you from making direct connections to Google and putting some distance between yourself and big tech. So you see a lot of these apps that you probably find familiar. Let's go ahead and click one of these. And I want to show you one of the coolest things about the phone is that it gives you informed consent. So with an app like this is the job search. You can see this at the bottom, 2 known trackers. On Android, Google's operating system, there are an average of 5 trackers. So what these trackers are, these are different companies that have software embedded in the app. And this is typically hidden software. So you can't exactly tell what it does. You just know that it's there. And this is really insidious. So on a normal app store, you have no way of telling how many trackers is in each app. Let's go to Adobe Acrobat Reader. This is just a PDF reader, right? How many trackers do you think it should have? 8?
0. It should have 0 trackers.
0 trackers. It should have 0 trackers.
Maybe 1. Maybe its own.
Maybe its own. We'll give it some credit. But unfortunately, it has 8: Google, Facebook, Branch, Adobe, and Open Telemetry, right? So this is like the average state of an app. An average app on Android will have 5 trackers. On iOS, it's something like there are 3 different websites the app is going to connect to on average that are not related to the original app, right? So there's all these other companies involved, and that the scary part is that these third-party companies will bundle and aggregate their data, and they'll sell it off to people like the Democratic Party for them to do voter research, or they'll sell it to sell it to state or federal law enforcement, because that's literally what they do for location data or things like that for use and help in investigations. And so that's the scary part. Now, the app that we recommend, and most of the apps in the above phone, are going to be from this app store, which is called F-Droid. F-Droid is special because these apps are fully open source. They don't have those proprietary trackers in them. Typically, they're offline only, so you can disconnect them from the internet as well. And I will show you, most of the apps on the above phone are this. So you can find alternatives to your favorite apps. And yeah, I'll pause right there. So those are the two different app stores that you can use.
Okay, so you said a lot, so I have a few questions, of course. And
Yes.
the first one is,
You're not on screen, by the way.
I know. My mouse is not working right. So it like takes me 20 seconds longer to do anything because it goes off into outer space. I'm getting a new mouse. I tried a new battery. The battery didn't fix it. So it's legitimately the mouse. You talked about providing your own cell service using the eSIMs. So like, does that mean you choose one of the networks, or does that access everything? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So our eSIM is using multiple networks. So if you're in the range of multiple networks, you can actually choose which one you want to use. So that's gonna give you way more flexibility and signal speed. And the way it's gonna work is we're gonna have plans for the United States that you can just pay monthly. Or if you are traveling outside of the country, you can also get like prepaid, like one-time plans if you're going to Costa Rica or Mexico or something like that. So that is coming soon. If you want to get the updates for that, go to abovephone.com and just wait for the little pop-up to sign up, and just sign up to our updates there.
Okay, cool. I was wondering because like my biggest frustration with cell networks is you have to choose one.
Mm-hmm.
At my house, there's only one choice, but then at my friend's house, there's a different one choice, and they do not talk to each other.
Really?
Yeah, AT&T and Verizon, that's the problem.
Oh man, that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the cool part is since it does allow for multiple networks, you can just switch. But yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look at that. Well, right now we're really testing the speeds out in remote areas. I'm sure, like, I don't know what you're doing out there, streaming videos or anything like that. Like, how is the signal speed?
Oh, not on my cell phone. I'm still on 4G here, and I get 1 bar. And so depending where I am, if I go up the hill, it gets better, but it's Tennessee. It's like this. So it's really hard in the rural areas to have coverage. So I actually had to change services so that I could do voice over Wi-Fi here.
Boom.
Which is, because my internet is great. It's fiber, and we have like a mesh network here, so I could walk around on Wi-Fi. That's what we've done.
That's awesome. That is so cool that you have fiber out there and the mesh network too. And you bring up a really good point about the above phone, is that, hey, you can use a cell service, and you need to if you're traveling outside of the house, right? You're going to be traveling, but this phone will work with your home Wi-Fi, or even with an Ethernet. Even with just an Ethernet, and you can use it without any radiation. I'm looking around to see if I have an Ethernet adapter that can hold up. So I'll show you another thing here. So let's say, Nicole, you're at home and you want to use the phone number. Well, we have a special internet phone number here. It uses an app on your phone, right? It kind of looks like any messenger app. And the cool part about this is that you add this number here. When you go to add it, you'll like literally type in their phone number, and you can add them as a contact. And this will be an internet phone number. So you can text them. They'll text you. It'll show up as little messages on this app. You can even give them a call, and they can call you. They can leave voicemails. You can make international calls. So let's say I wanted to text this person. I could just use my voice keyboard and say, "Hey there, Eve. It was a pleasure meeting you. I'm hitting you up with my internet phone number." And so that was an offline voice keyboard that you can use that is included with the phone. So again, really private ways to communicate. And then when you get this service, you get to pick out a phone number in the US or Canada, and it's only $5 a month, and you can pay in Bitcoin. So for me, this is better than a normal phone service, right? And you can use it at home. And the most important part is you can use it without radiation. I can't stress that enough. Here, I found it. It was like lying over there. This is what that looks like. So this is the Ethernet adapter. We sell essentials along with the phones. Like, part of our mission is to make sure people are using phones and technology in a healthful and holistic way. So this is the end that would go into your router. And this is the end that would go into your phone. It's got the USB-C port on it. So when you do that, you can essentially use this internet phone number and make phone calls without any radiation.
And why would somebody care about that?
Woo! Yeah. So
You're
yeah,
like, it's a big answer, Nicole.
yeah. I mean, for those of you who haven't felt it, so this radiation, there are bio effects on people, on animals, and on plants, and this is very widely studied. If anyone's interested, they could look at something called the Bio Initiative 2012, which is a collection of different papers that tries to summarize some of the bio effects. But we have it will affect your anxiety, it will affect your sleep, it'll affect diabetes, it'll affect heart disease, it'll affect if you're a man, how much sperm and how quickly they move, right? So this radiation is affecting all of this stuff, and most people are sleeping with a Wi-Fi router in their room. They're getting terrible sleep, and they're like, I have no idea what's going on. It's like, you're surrounded by radiation, and all it really takes for you to like get a sense of it is you can get a meter, test your microwave, and then test your router. When I've tested it at home, I've seen that it was the same levels of radiation, and so that's why I went completely wireless free. Now, I will say that for people with larger properties and stuff, it's okay to have wireless. Just turn it off at night. Just make sure you're sleeping with it. Since the phone is so close to your face when you're making a call, that's another really good thing to do, is make sure you're using zero radiation on your phone calls, just because it's so close to your face. If it's farther away, it matters less, but when it's close, protect yourself.
So you're pairing that with a headset, basically, so that you can have it over there and have a headset on. Is that how you're doing that?
Well, when it's connected to Ethernet, I actually put it on airplane mode. So the phone is having zero radiation. All the call is just going through the Ethernet wire.
Oh, I see.
And so, yeah, you can do it with a headset, but you don't need one as well.
Okay, that makes sense. I like to walk around, though.
I
remember buying like 100-foot long cords in the 80s before you were born.
Do you have those AirPods or something like it?
I have something like it. Yeah.
Wireless earbuds. Yeah. I mean, look, I understand they're so convenient, and I will say people have got to do what what feels best for them. This is just something I'm sensitive to it. So when I turn on Bluetooth, my heart kind of starts to hurt. And actually, it's weird. Since I became more conscious of it, it got worse. So I don't know if there's a good solution besides 100-foot earbuds. Carry those around.
Yeah, or stay in one place, like a treadmill.
Like a treadmill.
I'm really walking, but I'm not walking around. Okay, I got a question from Margot that may or may not show. Oh, I'm trying to click on it and it's not going. Okay, so she says, I'm just going to read it to you. Why do you think it's... Oh, let's try my trackpad. Nope. This is just... this is, in fact, a StreamYard problem. Why do you think it's the Google Pixel phones that are easiest to de-Google? So...
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, the hardware for these is Google hardware, but the software has been completely flashed. So it's not making any connection to Google. And we verified that. And the question is, The makers of these de-Googled operating systems, because there's a few de-Googled operating systems on the market. Why use Google phones? It's because those are going to be the best supported, right, to the operating system itself. They're going to have updates, and they also have good device security. So they have long update cycles. They get regular updates. Your phone is just going to work. If there wasn't a Google phone that was chosen, you wouldn't be able to just plug in a SIM card wherever you're at in the world and have connectivity, because that's like the level of support in the hardware. So there's security reasons, there's reasons for updates, there's connectivity reasons. For all those reasons and more, there are other devices that you can get that aren't Google hardware. Sometimes that's the deal breaker for some people, and we've looked at them too. But unfortunately, they won't support Graphene OS, which is this operating system that we recommend, which has got a bunch of amazing features. It's one of the most secure. It's one of the most private. It's one of the most stable. And so this for us is about some people have this worry about, oh, it's a Google phone. Is there a hardware backdoor? Um, can they break into my phone somehow? Well, if you're using any sort of phone, the answer is there's probably a way that not anyone knows about that they can break in your phone. This is not about getting yourself protected from like black clandestine operations or anything like that. This is about protecting yourself from mass surveillance, which is honestly the things that the what people should be the most worried about, because everyone on Earth is protected by it. That's like the 80% of surveillance that you're going to get rid of when you use this phone. Now, if you're a targeted individual or someone who is facing like immense pressure from the law, I don't think you. Let me see, bring myself on there. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. But so this is chosen just so you have a really seamless experience. We have several thousand customers now, anywhere from like 16-year-old kids who are getting this as their first phone to 80-year-old grandmas who want to send anonymous encrypted messaging, and it works for everyone in between. So it's just very usable.
Great. I'm hoping that was the question I just asked. You may have noticed I disappeared completely. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. No, it's all good. I figured you were coming back.
Yeah,
Did you
so
catch?
we'll be on a bit of a delay because I am streaming over a cell network now instead of my fiber. I'm not sure what happened there. So sorry, we're gonna have to count to three. So what makes Above Phone a better choice than other companies selling de-Googled phones?
Another very good question. So when you look at our website and you see what's involved there, you see that it's completely private. And all of our infrastructure, everything from what we use internally to manage our work, to our email system, to the services that we run, is on our own infrastructure. There's other companies that make privacy phones, and that's good. Like, we welcome competition, but they are not taking it as far as we are when it comes to sovereignty, but when it comes to being self-reliant. So when you use our services, all of that is just with us. There's the first party. So your communications, your emails, your video conferencing, we have all made that as private as possible. We're not just running a simple e-commerce website. We're running a whole tech infrastructure for you. It's working integrated with your phones. It's integrated with the laptops that we sell, and we also have a first-in-class support. So when you get a device from us, you're expecting a 45-minute free call. You get a free call included with the device. So for anyone who's like more hesitant, they're not sure if they can do it, they're kind of new to technology, that's what this free call is for. We will help you one-on-one, just like this, and we will help you take your things from your old phone, whether it's your SIM card or your contacts or anything you need, help you move it to the new phone, and help you learn how to use the new phone. So that's why we've just taken it a lot farther than other companies.
I think that's one of my favorite things about your service is you make sure to help with that startup phase, because rather than just having a card that says 1, 2, 3, good luck.
Yeah.
Everybody has different quote unquote needs on their phones. Like my phone, I'm going to have to figure out how do I use social apps while protecting everything else. because as obviously as a podcaster and with the events that we run, the way we sell tickets is by talking to people on social networks that we're telling you to get off of and have a backup plan. So it's a part that I have to do, or I may have a specific tool I use for productivity that I really need to use that tool, and having that extra support to me makes a huge difference. So that's something I really appreciate about what y'all do.
It is our pleasure. This is why we do the job, and that's yeah. So we're there with you from the start, and also we always have email and chat support, and also there's always ways to set up more calls with us. Those are paid calls, but still we make ourselves available, and we also understand that there's many different ways to learn. So we have video guides, we have articles. We're constantly putting out new content. We have like a little university that you can watch from start to end, and actually know how to use your own phone. So we have all these resources for you. And Nicole, as you were telling me about your social media thing, I'm happy to demo kind of what that looks like. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, go for it. I'll get my mouse to. I'm going to stop. I'm just going to use my trackpad.
Okay, let me see this. There we are. So while we were talking, I got the Facebook Messenger app. I'm sure that's one of the apps that you might have to use, or an app like it. And so what I'll do is I'm going to lock down its permissions. You notice here, permissions. Now, it's going to try and ask for a lot of this stuff, but I don't have to give it access to any of this. So location, microphone, that's not happening. I could even cut it off from the internet if I wanted, but in this case, that would break the app. So this is the cool part. When you break it down, you can actually say, hey, instead of giving you my entire contacts, which Messenger may ask for, I know there's apps like WhatsApp that ask for this, you can give it a segment of your contacts. Let me try that again. You can give
That's
it
the rule of online demos right there, right?
It's yeah. Usually, yeah, just pretend like it didn't happen. It's fine. You just turn it off, turn it on again. So contacts goes here, right? So you can actually pick the contacts you want. So I only want to give it access to Alice and Dave, and there we go. There you are. And now this app only has access to 2 contacts. So there's things like that where you can set your permissions to exactly what you want. Same thing with photos and videos. You can do the same thing. So you can set up these storage scopes. Let's say allow limited access, and then set up these scopes. Okay. And then you can add a specific folder that you want. So I'm going to say I only want Facebook Messenger to have access to the downloads folder. There we go. And it only has access to that folder and not the rest of your phone. So yeah, that's a way you can use your big tech apps more privately.
That's very cool. On the contact side, when I move to above phone, which is something I'm going to be starting this, like working on this weekend, if I break the phone, do I still have a way to get those contacts back, or am I now maintaining a manual backup? Like, how does that part work?
There are ways to sync your contacts. For instance, you could sync your contacts with our calendar server. But the smartest thing to do is to back your contacts up. And there's different ways to do that. We also have a solution on here that will keep your phone and your computer synced. So we call that it's a software called SyncThing. So it can do that. It could sync even your like photo library on your phone with your computer. So that might be a good way to keep your contacts backed up. But yeah, always keeping a manual backup is important too.
And I bring that question up because one of the things I've noticed about decentralizing my life is that I do need to be more cognizant of backups. I told you that I lost my Albi backup system, which I will find again, but I outsmarted myself on that one. And it's important to know that going in, because the convenience we get by putting all of our contacts on Google Contacts is if a meteor hits your computer, you just pop up another computer login and it's all there. So setting yourself up and being purposeful about that, I think, is really important. Margo wants to know, do the phones keep memory space longer without the constant tracking? For example, can you have the same phone for many years without it getting too clogged to work? Which is something we all have, right? Where our phones are basically obsolete 2 years into owning them right now. And then you have to upgrade and it stops working.
Yes, I'll just say yes. You know, the settings on this phone make it so that your phone is conserving its memory. And there are things, improvements with the lower level of the phone where it's constantly going through and erasing the random access memory. So that's a security feature. But in terms of just your storage on the phone, because you aren't using as many big tech applications, you're not using as many apps from the traditional Play Store. Yeah, your phone does tend to work work a lot better because there's not so many things running in the background. That's another thing this phone does really well is limiting apps that run in the background. So all of these things combine to give you a better experience, and all of the hardware we have is supported for at least 5 years. So you have a very really long update time. Some phones going as long as 7 years of updates. You're getting a full decade of use out of this thing, which is really nice because a phone is not a cheap purchase, but this is an investment, one that will protect you for over half a decade. So I think it's one worth making. Let's see if there's anything else I would like to mention here. Oh, I think you're going to get a kick out of this. So bring my phone back on screen. So one of the things is what is the content situation like? How am I going to use YouTube or things like that? So we actually have this app on the phone that is a private version of YouTube. It will avoid the tracking within the YouTube app. And look, I'm subscribed to Nicole's channel. And here's the cool part is that her videos, because they're so packed with knowledge, I can actually hang on to them. So I can download this video, I can download the audio, I can download the video. And so for me, when I'm going on a road trip, I find all my favorite creators and I download the videos ahead of time. That way I'm not using up all that data when I'm driving, and I can just download that in the background, which is really, really neat.
Oh, that solves a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That actually solves a problem because I have this prepper PC that is an offline in an EMP proof bag. And the one thing is that I want copies of some videos that I like. And, on YouTube, you can pay a premium service fee and you have access to those offline, but then they expire in a month. So, because it has to go back online, right? So it doesn't work. That solves that problem.
Absolutely. And you're not paying YouTube's what is it, like $8 a month for those features that are actually free on apps like NewPipe. So yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's totally a prepper phone. Eventually we'll do a Faraday case for it, but you've got exactly the right idea. You could do the same thing with your podcasts too. So I've got your podcast here. I could download that if I want. So, you're not going to be, I guess the point I'm trying to make is you're not going to be disconnected. You're still going to be able to get all the social media and educational stuff that you want. And then you actually are owning that data. You're homesteading that data. It's really cool.
Margo wants to know if the Pixel phones have a memory card slot to hold pictures. Like, can you upgrade your memory like a normal phone?
There is not an expandable storage, but there is this handy dandy little drive. Let me see if I have one laying around here that I could show you. Come on, where's my luck? So there is this handy dandy little drive that you basically plug into the bottom of the phone. The other end plugs into a computer, and most of our phones will have 128 gigabytes of storage, which is enough for most people. Then our Pro series has other storage options like 256, 512, and even a terabyte option. So if you look at our store, you'll see all that. And so no SD card storage, but you can use our USB. We sell that along with the phone. We call it the additional storage drive. I think it's something like $35 to double your phone storage that way.
Very cool. I'm trying to get your website up right now to show people, but my internet's really slow because this is 100% Verizon at this point, but
Funny that
it's
the fiber would go out.
shockingly, it's abovephone.com.
Yep.
Right? So you can go there and just learn about how it works. They got a shop over on the right-hand side. How do people get started with your service? Like, what's the best way to get started?
Yeah, you can start chatting with us in the bottom right-hand corner if there's any questions that you guys have. And so there's a phone, so you purchase that from us. That's a one-time fee. There's no recurring fees, so you purchase the phone. We send it to you. Typically, if you're in the States, you get it in a few days. Again, if you have any questions, there's that little chat with us button at the bottom. We have people online all the time, real people, not AI, that you can talk to. And so you get that. There's also the software services. That one, the our above suite, which gives you the private email, the calendar, video conferencing, like kind of like Zoom but private, a search engine like Google but private, and you can search multiple different search engines, and a VPN. You get all of those things for $100 a year, and that one does renew every year. So those are your two options. And once you purchase the phone, you'll get a bunch of emails showing you how to get started with us, to set up your call and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, any questions you have, the main way to get in contact with us is that little chat on the website.
Awesome. And guys, if you want, there is a coupon code in the show notes that you can use to get $50 off. So if you're interested in moving this direction, like a really good time to do it is when you're cursing at your phone going, you don't work anymore because you're getting old and you're starting to shop for a new phone. Entry level, was it like $650 or $600 for an entry level phone, all the way up to $1,400 on the website. So if you're already buying a phone, you might as well look and see, am I ready to commit? And I know what happens with me when I change phones is I keep my other phone, which is not usually broken. So if there's something I haven't figured out how to transfer to the new phone, I still have it. And you can kind of start that transition process slowly.
2 is 1.
Two
Absolutely.
is 1. Except for now I have like 3 phones that I need to. there's going to be some cleaning. Make sure your 2-factor authentication is backed up and functioning before you throw away the old phone with it. That's the one thing. That goes back to don't lose the things that have your money on them, right? That's how we started before the show.
Totally. Any other questions that you had, Nicole? Maybe just personally about the phone? Any things that you're wondering, like, how am I going to do this?
I think so. For me, the biggest stuff is going to be getting the social media and some of my productivity apps. Like I use an app called Cozy where I share grocery lists and tasks with people, because when we coordinate an event here, different people end up at the store, right? And so we have a shared list, which I then also use with the Holler neighbors because we all live next to each other. So that's going to be one I'm going to need to figure out. Everything. I mean, it's not that complex what I do with my phone. I use it for social media. I shoot videos. I do video editing, and I do currently need to access Google Suite. Like, but
so good. I'm glad we talked about that, because I know it'll be a migration process. So I think this is the app you're referring to. Yeah, Cozy.
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. Okay, so that one should just work. Also, if you need to use, because it takes a while to get off of Google services too, so I don't expect that to happen overnight. If you need to use those on this phone, you can. You totally can. That's actually, let me just show this while I have it up. So by default, there's no Google services out of the box, but if you wanted to use them, you could. You have the freedom to. And so you can see down here, Google Play services, you can install them. This is a safer way to use Google services. The difference is that on a normal phone, Google services has a God mode, like view over everything that's going on in the phone. Here, it's more like another app at the same level as different apps, and it does what you tell it to do instead of doing its own thing. So you can get this installed, and then you could use your Gmail, you can use your Google Drive, you can even log into YouTube, you can log into your Google account, you can do things like that. And it's a safer way of using it. So you may not have to go without Google Drive for a long time. I know you do want to find an alternative too. So hoping we can hang out and I can share some suggestions with you after.
Yeah, the big one I want to figure out is how to get the event coordination spreadsheet, which is complex and up to the minute with, 10 people accessing it. I want to get that off of Google, but we're not making that change before Self-Reliance Festival because that would cause everybody to have a mental breakdown right now. I'm pretty sure if I changed anything. So, any ideas on the price for the coming soon cell service?
It's going to range from $30 to $40 all the way up to $100 if you want like the super unlimited plan that you can't run out of.
Yeah, so commiserate with other cell services.
Yeah, it's meant to be very private, convenient, and fast. Those are our goals for it. It won't necessarily be the cheapest, but hey, sometimes you just need something reliable.
That's true. So what about using your phone as an access point? Is it more secure for me to keep Google services on the phone I have now and just access the phone's cell network, like Wi-Fi, internet, if I need to use them? I know that requires carrying two phones. Is that any more secure than just using Google services on the above phone?
I think well, in a way, it's just more isolated. It's more private for your above phone, right? To be completely separate from your Google account. Google will not have an idea about this new phone and that it's tied to you, Nicole. But on the other hand, on your normal phone, Google services does know everything that's going on in that phone. So there's kind of like, there's pros and cons of each way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're getting near time, and I'd love to hear the horror story that you alluded to at the very beginning, which you may have said while I was no longer having internet, about people using Google services or other cloud services and then getting into legal trouble. Like you alluded to that, but I don't think we followed that one up. So tell us what can happen.
Yeah, so like the question is, okay, like here's all this privacy stuff. I get it, I get the principle, but what could actually happen? And we all know surveillance precludes control. So in order to be charged for something or for someone to try and attack you, they really need to have knowledge of something that you're doing or something that you think you're doing first. And so this surveillance tech is all designed to do that, right? It's designed to kind of lock your lives down when the law permits. So in some cases, we're already seeing if you use Google Photos, you can be automatically flagged as a child abuser, which happened in 2022 to this couple in California. It was during the pandemic, so they couldn't go to the doctor. So they were doing a teledoc thing, and their child had a rash on his private parts, and the doctor asked for a photo. So he took one and he saved it to Google Photos, and he texted it to his wife, who texted it to the doctor. And then later that day, in a few hours, has got a notification: your Google account has been locked. He got kicked out of his Google account. He was using Google's phone service. He got kicked out of that. Google Docs, Google Drive, everything, Gmail, got kicked out of that. And he found out a police report had been submitted against him. And also a report to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, because an AI is observing everything you're saving to Google Photos and checking that for child sexual abuse material. So this is something that's happening. Apple also posited that they were going to do this on iPhones. And Facebook is also, these big tech partners are all kind of part of this program. And so in this case, Mark, he was innocent, right? This is just a family matter, but he automatically got kicked off of everything. Google would not reinstate his account no matter what. The police investigated him and found that there was nothing wrong, but he still had to deal with this. So that's one real case where someone's life got messed up to a degree. He had to find alternatives for everything, which he should have done in the first place. And so that's one of the scary parts, is how far Google can invade into your private life and family matters and then accuse you for things. And then the other is that we're seeing the use of Google's censorship, this geolocation database. And there's this man in Arizona who was arrested for in a murder case based on this sensor vault data. So what is sensor vault? It's this geolocation database. Police love it because when they're out of leads and real police work, they just pick a time and location of a crime, and they can see all the phones that popped up in that area. They see the anonymous Android IDs, which talked about earlier, which is it's easy to connect the two if you have enough data. So they're able to see all the phones in an area, and they use this to find this man Jorge Molina's phone, even though Jorge had an alibi, and he had it within 2 days of him being arrested, that he was at the movie theaters, right? Yeah, he had gotten an Uber, different data to show that he had an alibi. But they kept him in jail for a week. He got kicked out of school. He lost his job. His girlfriend left him, right? Suspected murderer, crazy. And he was innocent. And it turned out his father had took his phone, and it showed up at the location of the crime. And his stepdad was somehow involved in this. So they're starting to use this sensor vault database, which Google has gone ahead and said we're shutting the program down. By default. They actually didn't say we're shutting the program down. They said that we're not going to collect your location data by default. I would not take them at their word for that. But there are other programs that do these geofence warrants too. It's not just Google doing it. It's many of these tracking companies on the phone. They will pool their data together and sell it to an aggregator, which will then provide similar services. So this is happening everywhere. I don't believe in the January 6th protests, as really a thing, or how would I even say this? I don't believe that it had any meaningful change, but they still did locate protesters to that using this same type of technology, geofence warrants. And in the future, I think they will use it to check whether people are showing up to protests, violating curfews, things like that. So if you are using a Google phone, you will not have these services. You will not have these Google location services on your phone that feed into this system. If you're using a Google phone, you have a better chance of using apps that don't have, one, that you're not giving them location permission to, but two, just don't have trackers in them. So it really makes a difference. This can impact your life. And this is part of preparation, is that digital hygiene that you're talking about, Nicole.
Yeah, and it's funny. I know somebody who just happened to be in DC on January 6th, who was kicked permanently off Twitter.
Wow.
Even though they weren't at the protest. So,
Yeah, it's like, how did that happen?
But yeah, I wonder why I'm off Twitter now. Is it because I'm insightful? I don't know. I'm a great investigator. So and I expect to see a big second round of that kind of thing happening between now and November. It's just like we're already seeing posts we made 5 years ago get censored by Facebook, and even though Mark Zuckerberg was out apologizing, I think, about the COVID stuff, but
he's buttering up the next administration.
Yeah, he's not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. So there we go. All right, well, guys, this is something where some time with Hakeem can really change how you see these things and demystify a lot of this. There's been a lot of discussion since MeWe is changing how they work in the MeWe group about where to go next. And I know some of y'all don't like having your phone number connected with apps and that sort of thing. Hakeem will be at the Self-Reliance Festival, October 5th and 6th, live and in person. He's going to do a presentation that we're recording. We'll have that ready for the digital pass holders and to view afterwards. But you could just meet him in person, and that would be super easy by coming to the event. I'm really glad that you were able to make time for that. I know it was probably a little bit up in the air when the dates came out, but we're stoked about that. And he's calling it's the homesteading your data sort of idea. So taking that same concept that we're doing in our lives and putting it into practical application in your life on the digital side, because the digital side is there. And no matter how much you want to be a Luddite, at some point you need to stop saying I'm a Luddite and start dealing with some of these issues, or else you're going to end up in a situation where you don't have control and you don't have a backup plan. And that's not good. You might as well get started now and start addressing the dragon if it's a dragon for you. So if people want to connect with you, Hakeem, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you could reach out to us using the contact form on abovephone.com. And then also my personal blog, there's also a contact form there that is called takebackourtech.org. We're on all the popular channels, Twitter, Odyssey, Telegram. So give us a follow. And yeah, I'm happy to connect with you. I try and do educational content weekly on that. And yeah, this is life's work. Also, I am so excited to be speaking at the Self Reliance Festival. Would love to meet more of you in person. So if you want to hang out there, please come out to the Self Reliance Fest. I am going to have a few phones in person there for sale. So check that out. It's going to be well worth your while. And yeah, thanks again, Nicole, for all of this.
Awesome. Well, thanks for making time for me today.
Pleasure.